This is going to be a short video. It's just an expansion of one of my bathtub wormeries. So what I'd like to do is experiment to see if I can make those bathtubs almost like, well, a continuous flow through wormery. So what that means is you're harvesting from the base and then you're filling the wormery from the top. So you're using or taking advantage of that large capacity with the bathtub, and then the material is compacting down in the tub as it becomes pure castings, and then it will fill this bucket which container which fits underneath the bathtub. So what I've done here, this is quite big, it's about 50 litres, and this is just a 4-gallon plastic bucket. So it's just a £1 bucket from Wix. So I just wanted something cheap just to try this out and sort of see, just get an idea of what it's going to be like, really. So the opening is fairly big. So that's about 10-inch diameter or something like that. So get your hand in there and then you can rake out the castings. And the idea of this is just makes a nice smooth sort of chute, and it's got a lip here which will fix into the side of the bathtub sort of framework underneath. So what I'm going to do is, this is about 410 millimeters diameter, so I'm going to cut a jigsaw hole in the bottom of the bathtub, just using an acrylic bath, and then that will slot through to that sort of flange there, so there'll be a little upstand and that will support it. And then I'll put some angle plates on here and bolt through with stainless steel nut and bolt, so that's securely fitted to the bottom of the bath. And then, because this is quite tall, I'm going to dig out this section here, so that's going to be set into the ground. I might just have to put a couple of concrete blocks to raise the level of the bathtub up a little fraction. And at the moment I'm using a welded up steel table base as a support, and unfortunately that's got a rowel, so I might have to lose the rowel by sort of hacksawing that off and then re-welding it to the top. But that's only because I'm using the table base. You could just support the bath with concrete blocks or paving slabs or scaffold tubes or something like that. But what is quite nice about the using the welded frame is that the upside down frame, the legs come up, and then the flange or the rim around the top of the bath just sits on those legs and it supports it. So it's a really quick way of building these things without having to do lots of woodwork and make frameworks and do lots of dimensions and measurements. And the nice thing about these kind of materials is a lot of it can just be assembled on site. So you're just working with what you've got. You're kind of leveling up with blocks and concrete blocks and offcuts of wood and things like that. So it's not a big expense. You're not making a bespoke welded up frame to actually install these things. But in my case, it's more of a sort of prototype. So I'm on my first one. I just used that welded frame, which it might just have a bar across, which won't be a problem, but I'll see how it looks when I've installed this on the allotment. So what I've done there, I just got one of these £1 buckets from Wix. I'll just move this to the side so you can see a little bit better. So it's just a little cheap builder's bucket. They're not particularly heavy duty. They're fairly fragile, if anything. They don't take a lot of abuse, but I'm really just using it like a little tunnel, so you can gain access to the castings, and that'll be fixed into the other container, which is a lot sturdier. So I'll just take the handle out. Don't need handles, so I can just discard that. So all I did here, I just offered it up, got a white chalk pen, and then just held that around and just ran it around the outside to mark the opening. I jigsawed it out, offered it up again so it nestled in a little bit further, marked it again, and then cut it a little bit larger. And then when I got it to the right dimension, so the dimension from here is 350 millimeters, so the 700 width of the bath, that will come out right to the edge of the bath. And then I've got the centre line there, so it just means that you've got a little chute there and you can just dig the castings out, and just makes it nice and neat. You're not fighting around, and there's not big piles of finished casts all getting mixed up with everything else. So I think the idea of these continuous flow through wormeries is you're feeding small amounts and you're also harvesting small amounts at the same time. So the idea is keep that bathtub filled up to its sort of full capacity, and then as that material settles down, as it compacts down, then you just maybe once a month just taking out, even if you just take out a bucket full like that, and then it just frees up space in the centre at the top to put the kitchen waste or part composted material in. So I'm really looking at things like working with schools and community gardens and doing this on a larger scale. And I think if you can do anything to make it convenient, so you don't have to do lots of digging all at once, you can just say, I'm potting up some plants, I just need some worm cast to mix up some potting mix. Get your bucket there, or just a sort of trough or tray or something like that. Rake out what you need, and then put that to one side, and then close a little door on it. And this is going to have a reclaimed buffalo board door, so it's kind of look a bit like a Teletubbies house with a little door underneath. And then this I'm just going to use just reinforcing mesh just to make a kind of a green wall. So if you imagine, there'll be a vertical green wall coming down here and a nice little wooden hatch there, and that's all you're going to see. And then the top of the bathtub has got planters on there as well, so that's all organic matter, it's all growing. And then you'll just have to lift a lid on top of the bath and then add your material in, and that will compact down, and then the worms will come up into the material higher up to actually feed. So there is a small amount of taper on the bathtub. Obviously the top of the bathtub's a lot wider than this, and there's only going to be 2 of those in the one bath, so that's 800, and the bath's about 1500 long, and the bath's 700 wide, although then you've got a rim around the outside of the bath, so the actual opening is maybe 550 or something like that. So the walls of the bath obviously taper, they're wider at the top than the base, so it will, to a point, it will channel and funnel down in there. And obviously with the base of the bath you've got a radius on there as well, so it tends to sort of act as a bit of a chute. But this itself is parallel sided, so I'm not sure how well the castings will support themselves, but obviously that's a container there. If they fall down it doesn't matter, because the worms will kind of continue working, and then as this is compacted, in theory they'll move higher up. But it's still almost like a Dalek compost bin upside down, so you've got the wide surface area and then the narrow sort of harvesting window through the base. So what I've done here is I've cut off the bucket. So what I did, as I said before, I marked around the outside of the bucket, cut the hole out in this container, and then pushed the bucket through, rested it on a couple of blocks of wood so it was level this way round, and then I just drew around with the chalk pen, and then used the jigsaw just to cut off maybe 8 to 10 millimeters away from that line. So that gave me space to put this rubber door trim ceiling on there. What I will do is I'll get some angle plates, and then I'll put an angle plate here and put a stainless steel nut and bolt there. I'll have the nut on this side and the bolt inside, so it's smooth on the inside, and this way I'll have the bolt head here, or it'd be like a button head screw, and a reinforcing penny washer as well. And I'll maybe put 6 of those around here, so it will support this. Because this is fairly thin as well, I think I'll get some layers of chicken wire and wrap it round, and that will just stop rats from gnawing away at this. But the front piece here, there'll be reinforcing mesh there. This will be all filled in with soil, and then the door itself can just be buffalo board, or even hardwood would be really nice, because then you can make a feature of it. And so yeah, the rats won't be able to get in that way. This container is really heavy duty, so it's about 4 mil thick, and obviously this material in here will be a finished casting, so there won't be lots of food waste and kitchen waste. And this is nice and smooth as well, so the idea is it's kept fairly clean, so you're not really encouraging rats to move into this. And what I put there, it's just a spout, the pouring sort of lip there. I'll just put it at the base, so when the door's on there, it just gives somewhere to drain a little bit, so there'll be a little bit of a, I don't know if it needs that, but it's there, it's doing something anyway. So I'll make a router template for the big opening here, then I can screw that to the base of the bath, cut round roughly with a jigsaw, and then use a router with a bearing, just to, well, an old router bit with a bearing, because there's glass fibre in the bath reinforcement, layers of glass fibre on top of the acrylic to reinforce the tub. I'll wear a mask when I do that bit. I'm only going to just neaten it up, maybe a couple of millimeters or so that this is a nice tight fit, so you're not going to get rats kind of just crawling around in here and getting access to the bath on top. And obviously the bathtub being reinforced with fiberglass, and it's maybe 8 to 10 millimeters thick as well, so they're pretty sturdy. So you can see inside here, this container, there's a bit of sawdust and a bit of debris in there. I've got to clean this out again. But as you can see, there's a little bit of space underneath the actual hatch as well. That does taper down. I'll put some drainage holes in there. I don't really know if I need holes to allow worms to move in or out. In two minds about that. Part of me says that will be quite a good thing to do, because then you'll get lobworms in there as well. And I'm not worried about separating the castings, because this is going to be on the allotment on a community garden as well, so there's going to be loads of worms all around. So I think in a way it's probably good if they can actually gain access. If you leave a sort of wormery like this unattended for a long time, there won't be that much food left in there for the worms, so I think it's quite nice if they can all move out. But obviously worms will crawl through the tiniest spaces anyway, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. And what I might do is with the door, I might just drill a hole in there, a fairly large hole, and on the door put a sort of stud that locates into that. And then on the other side, it might be nice to have like a sort of toggle latch or something I can just rotate into a slot there, so that I just retain the door, so it makes a nice seal. And I might just put some small holes through here, maybe a bit of plywood behind that, just to sort of keep it nice and positive. But I think that looked quite good, because it's hard to visualize, because it's be much more apparent when it's all set up. But yeah, that's going to be a vertical green wall here, right up to the rim of the bathtub around the top. And yeah, reinforcing mesh, cut that so it's a nice fit on here, and then maybe just cable tie and put some screws in there to a bit of plywood behind it, just to support that as well, keep it nice and stop it from deforming. And then the roll around the outside, I'm just going to use scaffold boards to set this up as like a hugel bed, and then that will just make a big mass around there and keep the worms inside a nice sort of constant temperature, because they'll be insulated from sort of cold air as well. Especially with still baths, that's a bit more of an issue, but it's not a problem. I mean, I've had above ground wormeries where it's been below freezing. Some of the wormeries frozen, but then a little way into the material, the worms are still active and breaking down the material. One issue I might find is I'll see if I can find some sort of mastic or something just to bond this rubber on a little bit better, or I might put some small maybe N3 stainless nuts and bolts, possibly every couple of inches, just to hold that on. Because I think when you're harvesting things like this, if you've got a sharp edge there, it's going to be an awkward job, because it's going to be at a low height. I didn't want to raise up the bathtub sort of drastically to make this really convenient. And even if you raise it up, what's the height of a bucket? It made about 350 millimeters. It still makes the whole thing really, really tall. And I'm trying to keep it fairly low profile, so it doesn't sort of dominate the allotment, dominate the school garden too much. But the concept is really good. And what I might even do, it might be worth having a worm bin in front of this, and then you can actually harvest that worm bin, drop your bucket down into the ground, and then just scrape that straight into there. Or alternatively, the worm bin you could use almost like a harvesting station, and then you can take the material out from that worm bin, cycle it through the wormery, and then yeah, it just gives you that drop, so you can harvest the material. So that's just something to think about. I think when you use lots of wood chip as well, it's quite nice if you've got wood chip, you can just have that to hand and then put it into the wormery as a kind of carbon as well. And obviously that wood chip will be breaking down around here, and with these things, if you've got leachate in here, at the moment some of these I've kind of had subfloors in there for a little bit of drainage, but then use capillary matting to kind of help to move that liquid out into the sort of surrounding, so it benefits the wood chip and things as it breaks down. And obviously if you've got comfrey growing around this, any leachate is actually going to go through the wood chip, and that will really benefit those plants as well, so as opposed to sort of purely wasting any excess moisture. But as this is a work in progress, I'll think around this, and I'll post it on the group to sort of get some input and some sort of feedback to see what you reckon. But yeah, I think it should be good. Yeah, 6 little nuts and 6 little angle plates here. Bolt that on so it's all nice and secure. That'll make it really tough. I was even thinking about putting a bit of strapping builder's band around this just to reinforce it a little fraction. It might be overkill. but I might, when I put the chicken wire on there, I might put a band around there and possibly pick up on the nuts and bolts, just a couple on there, just so it's got something to stop it splitting and pulling out when it's got a lot of weight of organic matter around it. But as most of this is going to be under the bathtub, it's not going to be subject to a lot of sort of soil movement, and I'll probably put some type 2 MOT sub base or something under it, just for a little bit of rigidity as well. And the bath is set on concrete blocks, but it's only 225 litres of material, so it's easy enough to empty. And I don't know if it subsides a little bit with soil movement for all the worms and things, it's easy enough to just lift the corners and put a kind of a brick or whatever under it, or a bit of quarry tile or something like that. But yeah, it's looking quite good. So I don't have a tape measure nearby. I lie, I do. So you can see yeah, it's 9 inches, and well, it's about 10 inches there. The opening is quite big. Opening is 12-inch diameter, so that's a nice size. And then this is, I think that's 16 inches. So that's the idea. I think if you're looking at draining or drainage fittings and things for culverts and large diameter soil pipes, you're looking at 70 quid or something like this for this sort of size, if you can actually buy them. It's a kind of like a manhole sort of gully fitting, so using reclaimed materials is really good, because I mean, I've had this knocking about for a couple of years. I haven't really got around to using it. I was using it as a little small reservoir in the polytunnel just for doing a drip irrigation thing. I had a brass tap on there, but it's good because it's basically free. You can find all sorts of buckets and drums and stuff on Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace, and I don't tend to use Craigslist. I don't really understand that. Never seems to be anything available, but FreeCycle's quite good as well. Nextdoor.org's quite good as well. If you post stuff like this, if you say what you're doing, if there's a bit of community involvement as well, people are like, oh, I've got one of those in the garden, I never used it. So yeah, if it's any good to you, or you might find a plasterer or something, might have some old buckets, and if they're not too split, obviously they build up lots of dried on plaster and they're no good, because all the bits of plaster spoil what they're doing, so they'll kind of use them till they chuck them in a skip. So I mean, this is £1, so yeah, if you don't want to spend that much, then there'll be stuff available to buy, or stuff available to recycle or reuse. But the rubber door trims are, I don't know, a couple of £1 a metre or something like that, but I think it makes it quite nice. And I think once I've got the small stainless button head screws on there, that just hold it down, make it nice and secure there, so when you're accessing the stuff, you can get in there with a fork, and then you can drag it all out and get a quite substantial amount. Even a sort of 4 or 5 gallon bucket will be quite quick to do, and then put the hatch back on, forget about it, and then just carry on using the bathtub like you do normally. So I think it'll make it much more capacity in terms of keeping the bathtub maintained and keeping it up in use, because it's just a convenient way to use the stuff as well. But at the moment, I'm just tending to divide the bathtub wormeries when it's time to harvest. So now I've got 4 bathtubs. It's be nice to just use the ones I've got, and then make sure they're really full up as well. But the other thing I'm trying to do is I've got green manures and things I'm growing on top, and sedums, but I'm tempted to use one of the round can of worms wormeries as a sort of like a manhole on top. So you lift that off, and then you can rake the material around, and then put the fresh material on, and I don't know, maybe even stack it up a little bit higher, so you know when it's stacked up to that level, then it's going to kind of sink down, really maximize the volume. But at the moment, I've got these Wall-Balm M-Tray 500mm wide containers, and they look good, but the problem is they're a bit heavy, so it puts me off from adding material every week to these wormeries. So what I tend to do is do a sort of monthly feed, and so when I access the wormery, it's dropped down a little bit. So I think if I can have more of a routine where it's more convenient, I can just lift it, same as a can of worms, get maybe 4 inches of material over the surface of that can of worms, and then forget about it. Well, harvest the material first and then stock it right up, and then I know number 1's done, next week's number 2, and there's 4 bathtubs, so there'll be in theory 8 of these. So if you can imagine, if you can get a 25 litres out of this every month or something, it's quite a good sort of flow through. And what would be nice is if you could sort of say, okay, there's a bucket of worm castings that's got lots of cocoons in it, it's got a few smaller worms in there, and if you could start off a smaller wormery somewhere else, then that would really make a really nice start to another space. But obviously I'll just use this as I would normally, and mix it with some compost and sift it through and use it for potting mixes and things like that. But really, I mean, it's just disposing of waste, so yeah, it's just stopping stuff from going to the landfill and then getting the use out of it. But I'm quite one thing that's come out of the relocating the allotment is just making some community connections, and there's Nicky Scott has got a community composting network which he's revived as well, so it might be good to sort of see what's going on. But ideally I'd get a few gardeners involved in community gardens around North London, invite them along to the allotment, see what I'm doing as a sort of demonstration of this was £3 to set this up. I've got a couple of these tables, let's get a bathtub on the roof rack, let's set something up like this. You can see how it works. You can go to a community space where you can actually make one of these things, and then I think that'd be great, because there's, I don't know, it's I think a lot of these community composting schemes, it's just individuals sort of trying to set it up, and it's quite an onerous job, and there's lots of bureaucracy, and even with the allotment I've stumbled upon that myself. So it's a hard one. I don't know how you get past the sort of preconceptions and misconceptions of what composting is, and rats, and people are like, oh, you'll get vermin, or you get this, or you can't compost onions, or you can't compost citrus, or you can't compost cooked food, you can't compost, what else is it? There's so much. You can't compost fats, and it's like, well, London's got fatbergs blocking up the sewers, so it floods. It's like, well, you're crazy. You could, I don't know, sawdust, wood shavings, filter out some of that fat, put it through your compost, put it into pre-composting, hot composting, take out a bucket load of material that's part compost down, stick it in a wormery, and then just take the castings out. So you're not turning, you're not spending hours of back-breaking labour, shifting piles and tons of organic matter. You can get stuff delivered. So if you've got a space, if you've got a school, they've got space on site, they can get a delivery of wood chip. You can take a bucket of wood chip every time you get a bucket of waste, put it into an in-vessel composter, turn the handle every couple of days, take it out one end and put it in a worm bin. So it's simple, and I think if you can kind of make it nice and clean and presentable, and think, oh, it's got beautiful plants around it as well, so all you see is a little door. You can even make the door look nice. You can make it out of hardwood. You could do whatever you like on it. You could paint it, you could paint smiley faces on it, you could put numbers on it, you could laser etch that, you could engrave it, you could put brass plates on it. So yeah, it's kind of got that not Teletubbies, well, a bit Teletubbies, but a bit Lord of the Rings sort of, I don't know, all the greenery and lush sort of fertile sort of farmland and all that ideal sort of rural sort of landscape. But yeah, make that all over this as well. Comfrey around here, so you can snap off some of that, put it into the worm beds, clovers and ivory toadflax, those all flowers on this, and pollinators and birds and robins perched on the branch watching you do everything. So yeah, I think it's good, but it's a way to go. But I'm setting up that eco council at the school as well, so I think once I've got a few of these things, I'll make them. I'll just go and do it and say, would you like me to install this? This is how it works, this is how it's been working, this is the results, and that's the bill for £3 or whatever. So I think that's going to be good. But yeah, anyhow, I hope you find this of interest, and if you can kind of get something out from these sort of ideas that I've been posting as well. And I think what I'll do next, I'll make the router template out of just about 6mm MDF, so it's ready to go. Pick up a bathtub. I've got the other one on the allotment, so I tend to kind of pick up one thing and then drop another thing off. So I'd like to get all this all set up with all the brackets and things, and then obviously when I'm on the allotment site without power and stuff, I can just put it together with a cordless screwdriver. But yeah, I like this. It's got a good vibe about it. What I kind of want to do as well, if you imagine the bathtub is going to be up here, I might cut one of these down and just have it as an access window, and then have another hatch there, and then cut this off so it sort of fits onto the side of the bath, and then just have a bit of acrylic behind that, so it's like a porthole. So to have one porthole and then the two access panels. I think that'd be good. But that's all for now. It's a bit, it's a talk about 25, for 25 minutes about an old couple of buckets, but there you go. Thanks for watching.